Hello and welcome to Jesus for Asia Now. I'm Natalie Wood, and today I'm back with Kasey, Norton, and Hannah, and we've got more stories coming. So welcome back.
Thank you.
We're glad that we have time to get some more of the stories because what we've heard so far is good, but we know there's a lot more coming. And I want to start out by, again, just for our viewers' sake, reiterating that you're based in Sukhothai, Thailand, and
Right.
the Lord took you there. We've done a couple of interviews with you before, so if they'd like to hear more of the stories, they can go back there. But another thing that I want to mention is that you have a blog and a Facebook page where you share these stories, and a YouTube channel now, right?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell us how they find those things?
The website is walkingredeemed.com. The Facebook page is Walking Redeemed, and the YouTube channel is Walking Redeemed. And I think for whatever reason, it says Kasey Norton after it.
Okay, so, but if they look for Walking Redeemed, hopefully they'll find you.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So right before we finished our last episode, we found out that your best friend is a Buddhist monk.
Yeah.
So we also found out that you've moved to a country property now and you're starting to build a children's home.
Yeah.
How did you even start looking for property? I mean, how did the Lord direct on that?
Well, when we moved into the house that we're in, it was plenty big enough for those of us that went to Thailand. But as God brought more and more children, we ended up with 6 Thai children while we were living in that house. And there's no yard. It's just concrete. There was the field beside it.
But it was hot.
Yeah, the field, there's no trees or anything. So the kids would only stay out there for so long and then they would be back in the house. And so we also know that kids need the benefit of nature to grow in and to learn to work. And so we've been praying all along, whenever the kids started coming, that God would open the way for us to move to something more open. And so Jonathan and Hannah, again, they've helped. God has used them to help us find our first house that we moved to, the mission post office, and the children's home property.
Nice.
And Jonathan came across this listing for this property, and he was like, this is too good to be true. And they called the lady, and we went out, I think the next day, and looked at it. And it still felt impossible as we were walking around there. But God is in the business of doing the impossible. So.
Wow. So are there stories with how the next children came to you? Because I know we heard about the first 2. Are there stories about the next ones, or any one in particular you want to talk about?
Gao and Fasai were just brother and sister who had never really lived together. They didn't know each other. They spoke 2 different languages. And they were the next to come. And then like 5 days after that, Jing.
Not even.
Yeah, probably not even 5 days that we got Jing. So those 3 all came in June of 2020. Gao adapted very easily. He's just a sweet-natured child. He had been with the pastor for a bit. Fasai was not so easily. And I think it was very scary for her because everybody else was speaking either Thai or English. And she spoke Hmong. And so she already didn't like the confinement of rules. But then on top of that, the
Language barrier.
was really difficult for her.
Wow.
And then it was in August of 2020 that we got another call, and that was more COVID related. The 6th child that we took because her mom just couldn't take care of her anymore. And so, we got Namwan then. We have since gotten 3 more, so we have 9 total, but the other 3 came more like a month or a month and a half ago in 2021.
Yeah, I heard you had lots of notice about all 3 of those.
No. Yeah.
No?
No. We get called. I don't know how or why because we're not listed or licensed, but we get called, multiple times a week asking to take kids. And we're just not able to. We don't want to lose the kids that we have. And so we've had to say, we'll get back to you as soon as we're able to. But with these 3, the situation was different. We had almost no notice, and it was just very obvious that the way that it all came about, we couldn't say no. So it's God has a plan for why we're over limit.
Right. So you're working on this new property. Now describe it for us. Tell us about it.
It's 24 Rai which I think is 9.5 acres.
Okay.
It's got a pond in the middle, and just amazing because it had 4 houses on the property that needed just a little bit of work to make them habitable. We used all 4 of them. And it had 2 partially built structures across the pond. And they were, the one that was more built was also in really poor shape and was, just kind of falling apart. But when we first got there, we didn't, have any vision for that. We were just like, oh, we'll do something or we'll knock these down. But then as we stood and looked, we were like, oh, we see housing for more children, and we see maybe a school, a small school. And God just opened the way for those things to happen. We now have the school is built along with a little chapel. And then right now they are finishing up the first 4 of we're doing 6 apartments in 1 dormitory.
Okay.
And they're finishing up the first 4 of those 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the buildings that were there, you said they needed a little bit of work. I remember seeing a video of some water coming inside your house.
Oh, yeah. That was in our actual house. When they build these houses, they'll build like the main part of it, and then if they go to add something on, they just sort of
just push it in there.
Yeah, just tack it up onto there, and so it often isn't sealed. And that's the case. Our kitchen is an afterthought, and so when it rains, water was just coming straight down into the kitchen. Yeah. And we were just like, oh, and it goes all through the living room, and not dramatically so. We didn't flood.
It's not like a pond.
No.
But still, having a river
right?
It was quite wet.
Yes. It had
when you're not
beautiful
planning on it.
Waterfall sound.
Yeah.
Yes. But they've stretched tarps out over top of it. We tried many things to get it to stop leaking, and without some kind of cover, it still leaks.
So there's going to be a new roof needed.
There's going to need, the roof is sound. There's going to need to be something done to secure the one part of the house to the other. But right now it's rainy season and we have tarp stretched across it, and it's doing the job.
That's all you can do in rainy season.
Yeah. Robbie just sent me a picture, and they've torn. They had to replace them because the wind and.
Yeah. That's probably going to happen multiple times. But it's okay. Just keep doing that.
Right.
We don't want the water in there.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing. It's rainy season, and you don't have air conditioning, so it's not going to draw out any of the moisture out of the air.
Right.
So clothes drying and drying out the house when it does rain in.
It's nice, though, to be able to experience a little bit of what the Thai people experience in the more traditional houses. There's some that are more Western style, but so getting to move from that Western style house, which God was so gracious to allow us to go into first, into more, traditional Thai housing gives us, I think, a little bit better insight into what the people live with.
So you're buying this property from Thai people. So we talked in the other episode about there being spirit houses and things. Was there a spirit house on this property?
There were multiple.
There were like 3,
Yeah.
2 or 3, I can't remember.
And we were initially told that we couldn't take them down until the property was paid for. And it's a 2-year, sort of like a purchase agreement. And so, in my mind, Robbie's mind, no big deal. There's not really any power in these. God is more powerful. So we knew we didn't want them, but it wasn't a deal breaker. We weren't thinking, God isn't leading us to this house. But shortly after moving there, we started to hear voices. It was at night. We would hear like something whispering beside your head, or close by, and you'd look and there would be nothing there, or somebody walking outside, like the shuffling of shoes or things dropping.
Like the one time I was asleep and I woke up and I heard somebody like walking up on the porch, and I looked out the window and I was like, and there was nothing there, and they like came all the way up on, and then they walked down, but there was
nobody there. So this was happening to all of us, but we weren't talking about it because we all felt like we were just going crazy a little bit, and we didn't want to say anything. But then we started having electrical issues, and things were melting and smoking, and an electrical cord had charred in the girl's house, so the cord was charred, but there was no burn mark
and
or
we
anything.
have a wood house, so like it would have been.
Wow.
And the one morning we got up and we were building a bathroom on to what is now the office of our house. And inside the bathroom was one of our pet rabbits had been taken in there and part of the head was chewed. And it was just very bizarre. And I think it was the same morning then we took the kids to school and we had just the American boys in the van, and I turned around and Quinn just looked like he was in pain. And I said, or he looked like he was about to cry. And I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "Everything hurts." And I told Robbie, "We need to take him to the hospital." And instead of arguing, Robbie just went directly to the hospital and went in. And it was during that time while he was in there and I was outside with the other kids that it really began to occur to us, what was going on. We messaged you guys, and John said, we really need to be praying. And we had several other families in the U.S. that started praying with us. And all of it stopped other than Quinn. He started at that point on, a several month long struggle for his health. Previously completely healthy. We had always had trouble with his twin brother. And now, he gets sick and can't get better, and he was hospitalized. But the best way to go after a family, I think, is attack their kids, because that's where you're going to discourage them or, make them give up or make us retreat back to America because the health care is better or whatever. So it makes sense that he is going after the kids because that's the most likely way to get us. But it just became evident that for whatever reason, there was something on that property that was giving the enemy access, and he was very interested in utilizing the access that he had.
Right. So then you had some people come and visit, and they took those.
Yeah, the Steck family came to visit, and they didn't wait for us to ask for permission from the people. They just took the spirit houses down, and best decision. Yeah. Should have been done at the outset. We thought there's no power in them. It's not. It is what it is. We'll deal with it until we can get them out. But yeah, God used them to get them off the property.
Wow. You mentioned earlier your friend Ram, your best friend, the Buddhist monk.
Right.
And so I wanted to ask you, I know that there have been different opportunities with him. Can you share how you first met him?
Robbie was introduced to him by a friend in our the village that we moved into initially, and Ram speaks English but wanted to learn to speak it better. And then he learned that Robbie is half Mexican and also speaks Spanish, so he wanted English and Spanish lessons, and he started coming to our house occasionally for those. And then he started coming occasionally, and they weren't doing the classes anymore. He was more teaching Robbie Thai than Robbie was teaching him English. So, and then when we rented the Mission Post office, the building, it's pretty much right across the street from his temple where he lives. And so he started just coming in to visit there, and he would walk in, in his orange robe and bare feet and walk inside the office. It's glass front and glass back, and just sit there. And it'll be very interesting when we get to heaven to know the impact that had for the people in that area, to see the monk sitting in a very obviously Christian building.
Wow.
Yeah, the walls and the barriers that God has used Ram to pull down. Yeah. I don't think we understand at this point.
Right. But in the light of heaven.
Right.
In heaven we'll know.
Yeah.
So then there was, you got a phone call after you moved out to the new property. You got a phone call from someone that was in the village where the other house was.
Right.
Can you share about that?
Yeah. The gentleman called one Sabbath afternoon, and he said, I regret to inform you that our son Archie has died. And Archie was 5. He died, he choked on a fish ball while he was traveling in the car with his dad. His dad couldn't get it loose, and he took him to the hospital. They were able to get it out and restart his heart, but he ended up dying the next morning. And he just told me in such a disconnected way, with no emotion, just very matter-of-factly. And he invited us to the funeral that night, at the temple. And so we asked some other missionaries who'd been there longer for some advice on going to a funeral. We wanted to be careful to be respectful of their ceremony without entering into Buddhist worship. And so then we also contacted Ram and told him what had happened. And he said, well, come get me, I'll go with you. And he did, and was very helpful in walking us through the evening. He warned us when there was something, some type of worship coming up to let us know, you don't have to participate in this. And during that evening, we were able to walk outside for a few minutes, and I asked him, what do you believe happens when you die? And he said, well, if you're good, then you'll go to paradise for a while, and then you'll be born back into the world, and you'll be, you know, somebody of status. It could be wealthy, a wealthy person. He said it could even be born back into the king's family. But if you were bad, then you would go into basically a hellfire for a time, and then you'd be born back as somebody poor, lower class, or he said, you know, even something like a dog or a snake. And that night for me, I think, is really a turning point in my experience with these people, understanding the just the cruelty with which the enemy has gone after them. Because so often we think that, you know, another religion like Buddhism, they just believe differently and it's okay. You know, why do we need to go in? They're generally peaceful people. Why do we need to go in and mess up what they believe? And it has nothing to do with that. It is absolute deceit and hopelessness that they live with. And I went in and watched my friend stare straight ahead at the picture of her son. And for her, there was no hope, no shred of hope that she would ever see him again, or there was anything more than those brief 5 years. And it just, you know, that night, I never before that night had experienced somebody's pain the way that I did then. And I actually felt like I could feel what she was feeling. And I think that God allowed that to give me a little teeny piece of the heart that he has for these people, to help me understand that it's far more than doctrinal differences or whatever. He wants to free these people from this deception and hopelessness that they live with every day of their lives.
Wow. And you also shared how when you were saying goodnight to her or something, you give it's customary to give a white envelope with a gift. There's a specific gift a funeral gift that you give. And I handed her the envelope, and she came over and sat beside me, and I put my arm around her and just kind of squeezed her arm a little bit. But when I went to leave, I stood up and she was still sitting, and she just looked up at me with the most desperate look in her eyes. Like she knew that I knew what she needs to know. And God, in that moment, asked me to be silent. You know, our natural inclination is to want to share what we know and to fix it. And she wanted it to be fixed. She wanted her pain to be eased. And for whatever reason, I knew without a doubt that it wasn't the right time. Wow.
And so, but the fact that I saw that in her eyes, I don't think I'll ever forget the look, you know, but at the same time, it gives me hope. I know the assurance that God is going to open up the door at the right time to share with her what she needs to hear. And I believe firmly that it's going to be at the time when she's able to hear it and accept and embrace it and, you know, have hope.
Right.
She has another daughter.
He wasn't the only child.
No.
Wow. So not long after this, you had another experience with Ram.
Right.
And it was about his buffalo. Can you tell us the story?
Yeah, he keeps his 2 water buffalo on our property. And he came over one morning to put them out. He put them into a field beside ours, a rice paddy beside ours, to let them, you know, graze and play in the water hole on our property. And they did that for about an hour before, wow, one of our Bible workers noticed. And she completely panicked because she knew that just the day before they had gone out and sprayed with something that is very lethal to buffalo. So she ran out and she told him, and he was just so full of dread, like he had just killed his baby girls. And he pulled them in. And we did everything that any of us knew to do. Charcoal in the water, salt in the grass, to make them drink more water. But Robbie walked up to him and he said, Ram, we believe that our God will protect your buffalo from this poison. And we're going to pray for him, but we really need to take these charms off so that they don't block the prayer, so God has full power. And neither Robbie or I expected that Ram was going to agree to this, because the whole point of putting the charms on was to protect them. But he immediately said, take them off. And so Robbie went to untie them, and it was taking a little bit because they're on there pretty good. And Ram said, no, cut them off. It'll be faster. And
Wow.
just the fact that in that, moment of crisis when he was, because it sounds silly, but it would be similar to one of my children being sick to the point of death. And for him in that moment to have no faith or trust in his own religion, and the little teeny shred of faith that he had being in the God of creation. And so the charms came off, and we prayed for the buffalo and took him home, and he fully expected, because the vet said they'd be dead within 6 hours to 2 days. So he expected that by the next morning we would be calling him, telling him that they were either really sick or they were dead. But the next morning they were completely fine. They were not sick at all, definitely weren't dead. And 2 days passed and they were still fine. But he had then since talked to somebody who told him these things can take time.
Like maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah. So the waiting process of, reminding him every day, we prayed for your buffalo and God answered, they're fine. And he would say, I hope so. But it was somewhere a little after, maybe a week, that he finally started to realize my buffalo aren't going to die.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because he hasn't ever said, your God protected my buffalo, but we genuinely believe that he doesn't not believe that either.
Right.
And that God is working in him. And the kids have heard him multiple times out on the salah, the covered patio on our property, listening to Christian music.
Or even out when he's taking care of the buffalo. He'll be listening to Christian music.
Yeah. So
Nice.
God is reaching the heart
interest
of this
is being
orange-clad monk.
Wow. Well, what a privilege you've had to see
Yeah.
the little glimpses into what the difference is, the spiritual battle, and yet seeing God win the little battle after little battle,
Yeah.
to give you guys opportunity to reach out.
Yeah. It's been a gift.
So we've been sharing some of your stories here, but I want to let our viewers know that you have written a book. Can you tell us about this book?
I don't have the attention span to just sit down and write a book yet. I have not ever been able to do that. But I did put together some thoughts, largely for myself and our family, to be able to look back. So much of our experience depends on us being able to remember the way that God has led in the past. And so I really wanted to have it chronicled, to a degree. And so I put together what's basically a 31-day devotional. So it's basically short entries of experiences that we've had while in Thailand.
So Hannah, I know we haven't really addressed you directly very much, but do you have anything that you would like to share about from your time in Thailand so far?
I think from my experience in school, because I went to Thai school for, I think last year. And when I was in there, I was a little, I didn't know what I was in there for. I was like, why am I in school? Because I couldn't understand a lot of it. And so I kind of went in with the mindset, oh, I'm here to learn the language, learn the culture. And a lot of my classmates could speak a little bit of English. And I was just connecting with them, like trying to make friendships and talk to people and figure out what they believe. And I talked to a few of my classmates and some people outside of my class, and I was like, what is something that brings you joy in life, like daily basis, weekly, even monthly? And both of the people I asked, they said nothing. And I said, like, nothing, like, at all? And they said, no, my day's the same. I wake up, I do the same thing, I go to school. And I was like, what about during your break? And they said, I do the same thing then too. I go out and I study. And I was like, so nothing? And they said, no, nothing. And I feel like that was when I realized, like, these people don't have anything. Yeah, they don't have purpose. They don't have purpose in life. And I don't know what that's like. That's so weird and foreign to me, because I've grown up with some sort of purpose. Like, and I just find it so sad. Like, living a life and you don't expect anything more than the life you're in. And that's all you have. I don't know. But
those relationships that she built while she was in school, now that she's not even in school anymore, those relationships are still there. And so it's...
You guys keep in touch?
Yeah, we do. Mostly through message. Sometimes I'll meet up with them.
Wow. So did it help you learn a little more Thai?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. My friends were really super helpful. And they were also like to make fun of me. but
because of your accent?
Yes. But also their English, it was fun because we just got to share our languages, and they would ask me questions. Like, they'd be in the middle of class and they'd be like, Hannah, what's this in English? And then the English teacher would look at me and he said, no, you can't tell them. I was like, okay. But yeah, so it was a really nice experience. It was really cool.
I'm sure there were some hard times.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, that's a neat opportunity, and seeing and maybe understanding more about them and what their culture is and what their religion teaches them, and all of that.
Yeah.
Gives you a heart of love for them.
Yeah.
A heart of understanding that they need.
Yes.
They need the hope. They need the opportunity for joy, the purpose that comes from knowing God, and knowing that there's eternity coming with Him. Wow. Well, I just appreciate so much you taking the time to be here and share with us. We'll just be praying for you, and I would like to invite our viewers also to pray for the Norton family, for the spiritual battle and the warfare that is so real in Thailand. And if you would like to sponsor them, you can contact us at Jesus for Asia, P.O. Box 1221, Collegedale, Tennessee 37315. Call us at 423-413-7321, or visit our website at jesusforasia.org. May God richly bless you till we see you next time on Jesus for Asia Now.